Aye.
Great. In the packet that Laura sent out, was our minutes from the last meeting held? Has everybody had a chance to review those? Is there any questions related to that? If none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
This is Matt Wingate. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed with the same like sign? Motion passes. So Kevin, I'll hand it over to you for the approval of the fiscal year 2026 annual internal audit plan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So agenda item number 3 concerns the committee's consideration and recommendation for approval of the annual internal audit plan for fiscal year 2026. So as you know, the auditing standards require that a risk-based audit plan be developed annually to determine the priorities of the internal audit function that is conducted in a manner consistent with the organization goals. So the plan itself is designed to provide you a summary regarding the audit services which are to be performed during the upcoming fiscal year. The planned projects include operational and programmatic audits, as well as external audit support and advisory services. So the details, or the summary, I should say, of the planned audit activities are on pages, if you could go to 6, Sam, yeah, starting on page 6. Yes, right there. So this is kind of a summary of the reviews that have been incorporated into this year's plans. And, as I've said, most of the work which is performed by internal audit is regulatory in nature. But we do our best, to be flexible and address any other concerns of management or the board. So this year's plan includes a review of the corporate purchasing card process and the lender criteria process as 2 of the operational audits. And of course, you can see there, we perform additional testing and support during the external financial statement audit, which obviously the field work will begin in August, but we do some preliminary work starting in July. Then if we go down, this plan also includes, starting on page 11, I believe. Yes, 11 and 12. This details the completed reviews that were done during fiscal year 25. And it indicates when the review was completed, when the report was issued or will be issued. So I'm glad to answer any questions you may have about the plan itself.
Pretty well straightforward as far as I'm concerned. Anybody else in the committee have any questions? Appreciate that, Kevin. I would entertain a motion to approve this from the committee. Or no, we don't need a motion for that, do we? It's just a recommendation.
Right.
Sorry. Go ahead.
We would, so we would need a motion to make a recommendation to the full board.
I'll make it.
This is Bill, I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So we'll recommend that to the full board. Great job.
Thank you.
I'll let you go on. I think you still have the floor.
Am I up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Tracy, you're on next.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. I'm here to present the fiscal 25 third quarter financial update. As usual, we're going to walk you through a handful of slides this morning, starting with the pro forma statement of net position, which is the balance sheet. Starting with line A, consistent story over the past year, our total assets have increased as a result of issuing mortgage revenue bonds to finance our mortgage activity. Total program purpose assets increased by $189 million from June to March, which was offset in line B by a $47 million decrease in cash. Going down to line D, overall, we had an increase in assets from June 30 to March 31st of $141 million. Looking down at lines E and F in our liabilities, revenue bonds, and interest payables, these two lines increased by $126 million from June to March, which coincides with the increase in assets above. And then looking at the net position before the mark-to-market on line J, there's an increase of $15 million. This reflects a nice profit during the first 3 quarters of the year, which was used to warehouse additional loans in assets rather than having to borrow against our lines of credit. Going down to line K, this reflects the mark-to-market of our securities. The market value of the securities improved from June 30 to March 31st by about $11.6 million, a trend we've been seeing all fiscal year. Line L, the overall net position at 9 months improved by $27 million to $497 million, mostly as a result of the increase in assets with a number of loans held for sale at quarter end and then the booking of the mark-to-market. One thing I want to point out on the schedule at the very bottom in line L, this is our weighted average net servicing fee of our portfolio of loans that we service for others. So these are not loans on our books, but we do the servicing for them. We were at 32.1 basis points at March 31st, an increase of 3 basis points since June. And so to put that in context, a basis point is about $280,000 in gross servicing fee. So that's about $840,000 in additional servicing fee that we've been able to add since the end of last fiscal year. So we're moving in a good direction there. Any questions on the balance sheet?
Hey, Tracy, it's Bill. That 32 basis points would be considered maybe best of class range, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, we've been able to it fluctuates year over year, but we've been able to get a decent spread on what coupon size we package our MBSs in, and we continue to watch prices and try to hit that mark as best we can. Okay, moving on to the income statement for the quarter end. We'll start with line C, the net interest income. There's a slight increase in the net interest income since March of last year of about $1.3 million. We're earning more interest on our assets and securities in a higher interest rate environment, but we're also paying out more interest, but we are outperforming the interest expense slightly. Going down to line D, gains on sales of loans. Our gain on sale of loans at March 31st is down compared to last March. This is mostly driven by our lower production on the TBA side of things. Last March 31st, we had about $239 million in TBA loans for the fiscal year, and we're at about $197 million at March 31st of this year. We've been setting interest rates to TBA prices, essentially to recoup lender comp. In some months, we've just not been as competitive with our rate in the market. So production's down a bit on the TBA side. MRB side, we're pretty consistent where we were last year. Going down to line F, similar to the last side, this is a net increase or decrease in the mark-to-market. Most of our securities are currently booked with an unrealized loss. $8 million increase compared to last year reflects an improvement on that unrealized loss. Line K, lender comp expense, similar to the gain on sale of loans. This $1 million decrease was the result of lower loan production, our TBA program, for the first three quarters. And then going down the line P, our change in net position, which is our net income for the quarter, is $28 million, a $10 million increase over last year at March 31st. And as discussed, this is mostly due to the increase in our fair value of securities, a slight improvement on the net interest income, an increase in fees and other income, and a slight decrease in the lender comp expense. Any
Hey,
questions on that?
Yeah, Tracy, it's Bill again. I apologize. Would you explain line O?
Line O?
Yeah, this is my first time going through this, so I'm just curious if you could give a layman's definition of what line O is.
So because we're have governmental type activities here, we do fund accounting. And so every time we move funds within our different funds, or every time we move money within our different funds, we have to keep track of an interfund schedule. And essentially that's just capturing funds being moved within different funds of the corporation.
Okay, why wouldn't they net out to zero?
I'll have to look at that and get back to you, Bill, if that's okay.
Okay.
Any other questions on that schedule? Okay, moving on to cash flows. So this schedule is essentially just the inflows and outflows of cash 9 months in. Looking at line A, this is cash flows from operating activity. This decreased by about 27 million, which is mostly due to an increase in fees and some other income offset by our lower operating expenses, as well as a decrease in loan fundings. Going to line B, cash flow from non-capital financing activities. This $106 million decrease is mainly due to a difference in the amount of bond proceeds available year over year. In the third quarter of 2024, we closed on a $150 million bond issuance. In February of this quarter, we closed out a smaller bond issuance of $100 million. We also had less borrowed from our lines of credit in 2025 compared to 24 due to that lower loan production activity. And go down to line D, cash flows from our investing activities. Similar to line B, this $130 million difference is the decrease in loan purchases and sales compared to March of 2024. And then at the bottom lines, H, I, and J, all of these are single family metrics. Again, you can see our production numbers are a bit lower than last year at this time. Any questions on cash flows? Okay, the next two schedules are related to our operating budget. The first one being our operating fee income budget versus actual for the quarter end. We'll start with lines C and D, our homeless programs and weatherization programs. We're unfavorable to budget for these two program areas by $250,000 and $380,000 respectively. These are grant funded programs where if we did not incur the expense, there's no associated fee income. Essentially in those areas, there's some vacant positions that had not been filled or planned projects or trainings that did not take place. So it's a bit of a wash with those. Line E, Rural Housing Trust Fund and Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's $157,000 unfavorable to budget variance. It's again a result of some position vacancies and individuals not being moved into those cost centers until later in the year compared to budget. This is also the first year that we've drawn admin on both, so we're working to budget that admin projection a little more accurately. Line F, our temporary COVID programs. This is favorable to budget by about $95,000. This is mainly our HHERF eviction diversion program, a COVID program, where we've been able to deploy our remaining funds for housing connectors to help individuals with vouchers find units more easily, and it's been quite successful. These funds will all be exhausted this calendar year.
Tracy, I have a question.
Yeah.
In the skinny budget that was just passed by the House, is there any weatherization in LIHEAP funds that's going to come down, or do you know?
I don't recall, Sam may recall specifically about weatherization or LIHEAP. I do think a lot of those programs have been removed in that skinny version of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at line G, loan servicing fee income is 2.4 million favorable to budget. This corresponds with our growing loan portfolio with a slowdown in prepayments or refinances. Admittedly, we were pretty conservative in projecting servicing income last April when we did the budget, just not knowing where rates were going to be or if delinquencies were going to go up. So we'll continue to see this favorable variance to grow these last three months. We did make adjustments for that in the fiscal 26 budget presentation you'll see next. Looking at line H, rental production is showing $1 million favorable budget. This variance is mostly due to timing of projects closing, kind of hard to predict. We should see that fee income level out through the rest of this fiscal year. And then line P, overall, we were 4.6 million favorable budget for the first 9 months with a surplus of 8.6 million. The favorable fee income and servicing and rental production, along with favorable expenditure variance on the next schedule, contributed to that nice profit we see. Any questions on our fee income? Okay, pretty straightforward. The next schedule is our expenditures, budget versus actual for March 31st. Starting with the top there, salary and benefits. We are about 1.1 favorable to budget. This reflects some vacant positions for the most part. Either they were vacant at budgeting time and filled later into the year, or became vacant later in the year and took some time to fill. This also accounts for vacancies budgeted with full medical premiums and full 401(a) matches that were not utilized by hired staff. Going down to line G, foreclosure costs and release fees is favorable to budget by $245,000. We are slightly under budget on court costs and attorney's fees. We also book foreclosure claim accruals, which have been less than anticipated. The foreclosure moratorium during COVID created several inconsistent years of budgeting. This finally seems to be leveling out, and you'll see that in the fiscal 26 budget. Line H, operating expenses, is favorable budget by $250,000. This consists of a LED lighting project for the main campus, which will not hit until the fourth quarter. And it came in much lower than budgeted by about $100,000, which we're very pleased with. There's also a bathroom remodeling project that will be completed in the fourth quarter. Line I, printing and public information, is favorable by about $103,000. This is mostly our HOPE program, another COVID program, foreclosure prevention program, that they estimate we'll spend about $50,000 more before the end of the year, but won't fully utilize the full budget amount because the program has started winding down. Line K, travel, favorable budget by $137,000. This is related mostly to our continuum of care programs. Majority of the travel budgeted in those areas are based on training and technical assistance needs as requested by partner agencies. At this time, they have not requested as many as we budgeted for. Line O, liquidation shortfall, is unfavorable to budget by about $75,000. This is a product of payoffs. We've seen a slowdown over the past couple of years. The expense for liquidation shortfall seems to be under budgeted for this fiscal year, like foreclosure costs. It was pretty hard to gauge the reasonableness test of some of these costs coming out of COVID, but you'll see this updated in the fiscal 26 budget as well. Line P, training for clients and partners, is favorable to budget by $80,000. This is a result in not ramping up a couple new grants as quickly as we budgeted for. With the additional staff, these trainings will occur in fiscal 26. Line S, trustee and redemption fees, favorable to budget by $85,000. These budgeted fees have to do with several bond issuances, one of which we budgeted for in fiscal 25, but likely won't take place until fiscal 26. And then at the bottom, line P, overall, we're favorable to budget by $2.1 million for our expenditure categories. So as financials go, we had a pretty strong year. Staff are managing their budgets well. We continue to generate a profit from mortgage production and servicing, as well as a few program areas. As you'll see in the budget presentation, we're budgeting fiscal 26 pretty similar to the budget for fiscal 25.
Great, Tracy.
Yes,
Tracy, I have a quick question for you on A and B.
yes.
I might not be tracking well this morning after a holiday, but the salaries and employee benefits were the variance, because is that not a one-for-one tie on kind of the open spaces that we had, the open employees?
Yeah, I
Because
had a similar question for staff. So are you saying the benefit variance is larger than the salary variance? Is that what you're looking at?
yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the majority of that is when we budget for vacant positions, we budget as though the employee is going to take the full medical premium options and get the full 401A match. And then as we've gone through the years, some of that, they elected not to do one or the other or both, that the benefits is skewed a little bit more.
Makes sense. Yeah, as soon as you said that, I'm like, light bulb. Wasn't
There's
thinking that.
a lot of moving pieces here.
Yeah, wasn't looking at that one. Okay, awesome.
So there's no action needed for this. This was just a third quarter financial update. Do we want to move on to the next agenda item?
Yes, we do. If you're ready, you have the floor.
Thank you. So this is our operating budget for fiscal 26. I'm gonna, with Sam's assistance, briefly walk you through the budget packet and its contents, and then we'll just concentrate on a couple schedules within it. The first 5 pages is a budget memo, which highlights how we're doing financially, how the budget was prepared, some highlights and expectations for the next year. And then the following 2 pages, pages 6 and 7, are the 2 resolutions requiring a vote. So I'll let Sam stop on those for a second. So page 6 here, this is our annual budget for the housing revenue bond indenture. This is required per our general resolution. Our new MRB indenture does not have a similar requirement, but this is required to have a vote and be sent to our trustee. And then the next page, page 7, is our budgeted operating expenditures for fiscal 26 that also requires a vote. Going on to the next page, sorry, Sam, page 8 is our operating fee income and administrative reimbursement schedule for fiscal 26, for fiscal 25 budget, and then our projected actuals for fiscal 25. Page 9, the next page, is fiscal 26 budget compared to fiscal 25 budget. Page 10 is fiscal 26 budget compared to fiscal 25 projected actuals. So we go through an exercise during budget and project out how we think we're going to end this current fiscal year and use that to help guide us with the budget. The next page, page 11, is fiscal 25 budget versus fiscal 25 projected actuals. And then the last page, page 12, is our fiscal 26 proposed budget by activity or business division. So for this presentation, I'm just going to walk you through page 6, page 10, and page 12. So if you want to land on 6, I'm just going to highlight a few things in the memo. I know it's a little lengthy of a memo, but I think it's important to touch on a couple things here. So we'll start with Kentucky Housing Corporation enters fiscal 26 in comparatively good financial condition, coming off what is projected to be profitable fiscal 25. We've seen continued growth in mortgage production, adding to the servicing portfolio, a robust multifamily development initiatives, and a continuation of many vital housing programs funded by federal and state grants. In prior years, we've benefited from historically low interest rates and high investor demand in the secondary market mortgage program, resulting in abundant trade gains. Our exit from the pension put us on reasonably solid footing as eliminated sizable pension liability and significantly reduced operating expenditures. But current economic conditions, changes at the federal level, and inflationary pressures have presented new challenges for the corporation. So like I kind of explained before, if we've done in prior years, we use the current year's fiscal year projected actuals as a comparison for next year's budget. So we will look at the fiscal 25 budget and project out how we'll end the year. Much of our discussion today is based on that analysis. So starting with this page here, the top section in gray is related strictly to our old indenture that we're required to create a budget and provide to the trustee. One thing I'll just note here on line F, you see a $1 million transfer to operating. This transfer is for administrative expenses incurred as a result of operating the old indenture. The bottom part of this page is the meat of the total operating budget. This reflects our total expected revenue versus our operating expenditures, which for fiscal 26, we're projected to have a surplus of approximately 4.8 million down on line X, which is very similar to our fiscal 25 budget. So line S, a little above that, the budgeted fees and administrative reimbursements for 2026 are estimated to decrease by about 2.1 million over fiscal 25 projected actual income of 41.7 million. So comparing the left column to the middle column is what we're doing. So going back to the middle of the page, I'll just walk through these changes in these different areas for fee income and administrative reimbursements. Line H, we're projecting a decrease in mortgage servicing fees of about 840,000. This is a bit of a conservative estimate in the event we experience an uptick in prepays, but is much more accurate than what was budgeted for fiscal 25. Next, line I, a reduction in rental assistance fees earned of about $200,000. HUD has started prorating their HAP and their admin fees, so we are projecting to have less admin available for fiscal 26. Line J, reduction in multifamily program income of about $815,000. This is a mix of not as many resources available to finance multifamily development and less projects or units being financed due to just general increased costs. And our fee income in multifamily is pegged against, how many units or how many projects we can get done in a fiscal year. Line K, an increase of weatherization admin of $220,000 due to additional spending, which is reimbursable through those grants. Line L, similar to weatherization, an increase in homeless program income of $860,000. We have some additional COC grants this year, which will have additional expenditures as well as associated fee income. Line M, that is our home program and National Housing Trust Fund. There's a projected increase in admin for those programs of about $125,000 compared to fiscal 25. Line N, a decrease in HOF admin fees of $139,000. This is the COVID program that is starting to wind down. Line O, an increase in other grant and fee income by $126,000, which mainly is additional HMIS grant in fiscal 26 compared to what we had available in 25. Line P, a decrease in HHRF admin of 1.5 million. This is a COVID program ending by September 30th of this year. Line Q, an increase in state housing trust funds admin by $60,000. They continue to appropriate this last year additional dollars to the state housing trust fund. And then line R, decrease in home ownership fees by $80,000. This really is based off the type of lender we do business with. We have delegated lenders and we have TPOs. We are projecting to have less TPO lender fees this next fiscal year. So as I just discussed, line T reflects a $1 million transfer from our old indenture to operating, and line U reflects a $1 million transfer from our new indenture to operating to cover administrative costs of running those indentures. And then our total operating expenditures in line W, which you'll see on the next schedule, total $36.9 million, a $2.6 million increase over our fiscal 25 projected actuals of $34 million. Again, we'll discuss those on the next schedule, but taking both fees and expenditures into account results in the projected surplus of $4.8 million. I'm happy to answer any questions on this page. Okay, moving on to page 7, our total operating budget expenditures. I'm going to actually have Sam scroll to page 10 to discuss these numbers so you have something to compare them to. Okay. So these are our fiscal 26 expenditures versus our fiscal 25 projected actuals. Much of this increase is a result of an inflationary increase in costs, a one-time payment to staff, and increased grant activities in our federal funded programs. There are also some things that were included in fiscal 25 budget that have been pushed off to fiscal 26. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of those more sizable variances. Looking at line D there, total salaries and benefits, including contractors and temps. This includes a one-time payment for all staff, including the CEO, in lieu of a cost of living adjustment. This proposed one-time payment will provide management an opportunity to reward staff for their efforts, address inflationary pressures, while also being sensitive to the many unknowns at the federal level. Management will continue to monitor the federal funding of programs and decide later into the fiscal year if the one-time payment is feasible and still appropriate. This increase in salary and benefits also reflects the budgeted maximization of 401(a) match for employees and anticipated increase in employer-paid health insurance premiums, plus any vacant positions proposed to be filled in fiscal 26. And essentially, and I probably should have started out with a presentation saying this, we are budgeting based on what we know now. We don't know what will happen at the federal level or how that will impact our programs, but we are going with the information we have now. So that is why we addressed a one-time payment in lieu of a cost of living adjustment, just to provide a little more flexibility for management as we learn more later into this fiscal year. Going down to line E, computer operations. This item reflects an increase of $300,000, comprising mostly of costs associated with several corporate-wide software implementations, and implementation of a new service desk management ticketing system, and implementation of several pieces of AI software. Go down to line F, business services. This is an increase of $460,000 over our projected actuals for 25. This represents work associated with the consolidated plan and the updated KHC website that was budgeted in 25, but the expenses won't be incurred until fiscal 26. It also reflects an underutilization of our regulatory solutions quality control contract in fiscal 25, with the full contract amount being budgeted in fiscal 26. Line H, employee development. This increase of $250,000 represents increased grant activities and monitoring in federally funded programs in fiscal 26. Most of these costs are specific expenses and reimbursable, grant-specific expenses and reimbursable via admin fees. These grant programs are better staffed now than in fiscal 25, which allows training to be more realistic expense. Most of these trainings are required by HUD and again, are reimbursable via the grant admin fees. Line I, travel. This increase of $180,000 mirrors the increase in training and development for employees. It also includes an increase in the number of inspections performed and result in more travel costs for the inspection staff. Going on to line J, training for clients and partners. Most of this increase of $400,000 represents costs associated with increased grant activities, once again, specifically within the Continuum of Care program. Again, most of these costs are grant-specific expenses and reimbursable via admin fees. Line L, bond-related fees and expenses. The increase of $100,000 represents trustees' fees associated with increased usage and issuance of our mortgage revenue bonds to finance mortgage production. Line N, insurance. This increase of $48,000 reflects an estimated increase in our insurance premiums for this next fiscal year. Line P, telephone. This increase of $73,000 represents an AI integration with our corporate phone system to increase the efficiency of our call center systems, specifically in our mortgage servicing area and rental assistance program. Line R, publications and memberships. This increase of 57,000 represents a new contract within the IT department, which advises the corporation on project management, AI implementation, and software solutions. All right, I'm almost through. Line T, equipment and furniture. This account group is decreased by 290,000 as a result of a lot of projects completed in fiscal 25 that are not anticipated in 2026, which include completion of an uninterrupted power supply project and a solid state hard drive upgrade in fiscal 25. Line U, promotions and public information. This decrease of 115,000 represents decrease in advertising activities for the HOPE program, the COVID-related program, which we're starting to wind down. Line V, legal fees. This increase of 113,000 represents contracts with outside counsel not fully utilized in fiscal 25, but budgeted for in fiscal 26. And then line W, equipment repair and rental. This increase of 72,000 is mostly due to increased grant activity within the weatherization program, particularly the purchase of a van and trailer, which is reimbursable via those admin fees. So overall, there's an increase in expenditures of 2.6 million from fiscal 25 projected actuals to fiscal 26 budget, mostly which is due to salary and benefits, some contracts not being fully utilized in fiscal 25, but fully budgeted for in fiscal 26, and some IT-related projects. When comparing the fiscal 25 budget with the fiscal 26 budget, which is page 9, total expenditures are only up $40,000. Any questions on our projected expenditures?
Tracy, would you happen to have available what the 24 FY 24 actuals were?
Sure. I can send you
Just
some
total?
schedules. Yeah.
Just totals?
You want me to track that down now or send it to you
Oh,
after?
no, I thought maybe you might have it handy. I was just
No,
curious.
I'd have to dig into a folder for that.
That's okay. That's all right.
And honestly, a couple of years prior, and I'm actually going to address it a little bit on the next schedule I want to go over. When we had some pretty sizable COVID programs, our operating budget was much larger because we had a lot more staff running those programs. So it's definitely been a strange couple of years getting back down to our right size, but I'll certainly share those with you.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you.
Tracy,
And yeah,
go ahead. I'll wrap up my comment when you finish.
oh, that's all I have for this page. Do you have a question on it?
Well, I'll wrap up. Is there anything on these up to date here, and it could be anything in your future that's still on our wish list, or things that we were cutting that we might want to add back to?
We sat down and had some pretty lengthy conversations about projects planned, especially in the IT area. And we did take a couple of those out, mostly because, again, with some of these things at the federal level, not knowing what the next federal fiscal budget's going to look like, we really chose to be a little conservative and not do enterprise, wide initiatives until we know what kind of funding we're going to have. So we did remove some things, but none of them were of great importance. They can just be done in a future fiscal year.
Yeah. Just want to make sure that we're not leaving anything investment wise that we could capitalize on in the near future. But no, I appreciate y'all doing that, actually, from my viewpoint.
I'm not the best person. I'm not the best person to speak to this, but I highlighted in a couple areas. We did include some AI related initiatives that I think will really help, especially our call centers and things like that. So we are still moving forward with quite a few projects, but we did scale back a little bit.
Tracy, if you allow me, just high level to share a little bit. We're introducing the enterprise level Microsoft Copilot, which is going to be very helpful to staff for those that are using AI. We're also doing a mass email solution, secured solution in our loan servicing area that will truncate a lot of manual calls and communication back and forth. And we're also looking at some AI features on our new website that will be coming this fall for Kentucky Housing Corporation. So we're leaning in, not diving in, but we're leaning into AI, and we are budgeting accordingly, given what we know, but also planning for what we don't know. And you'll probably see that, you hear that theme throughout. So, but happy to entertain any questions. But hopefully, Tracy, that was a little more specificity for what we're actually doing. And we, as you saw earlier, we are making some of the necessary upgrades in this fiscal year as opposed to next fiscal year, because we do know for certain that, you know, we're looking at those surplus amounts and investing in the corporation. So thank you.
Thanks, John, for that added context. I was kind of worried when you're sitting over there, John, without a bow tie on. I was worried we cut out. Oh, no, there you do have the bow tie. Okay. Whew. I was worried that we cut out even that out of the budget. So,
Hey, Barry, it might be, at least from my own perspective, since the AI is embedded in this operating budget, that's somewhat of a nuanced increase. It might be helpful if John or someone at the full board, if they don't already have it planned, maybe to do a little bit deeper dive from the board's perspective of how you all are planning on incorporating AI into the operating operations.
yep.
I'm certainly willing to do that.
I don't know that would come from our committee, but it could come from the program and process committee.
Certainly, I defer to however we want to do that. I will be presenting the strategies at Thursday's board meeting, and you will see one of those is investing in AI. So I think it's a natural, it'll be on the agenda anyway, and I'm happy to talk through that and add any additional context necessary.
Great. Thanks, Bill, for that suggestion.
Sam, could you scroll to page 12, the last page? And I'll just point out a few things on the schedule. So the schedule represents our total proposed budget by activity or business division while incorporating our federally approved indirect cost rate. We have an approved indirect cost rate with HUD of 29%. That 29% is included down on line FF. This is where we have an opportunity to cover some overhead expenses with grant admin. So if you look at the first column on the left there, column A, rental assistance programs. If you go down to the bottom left in line HH, we cover all costs and indirect costs, and then walk away with a surplus of $3.5 million. That's mostly from our PBCA contract. But we're able to recoup some additional admin to cover overhead costs. But then looking at the third column, weatherization, reflect a $245,000 loss in line HH after the indirect rate was applied. This is because the indirect rate cannot be charged to some grant activity in certain weatherization grants specifically, which causes that deficit there. Looking at line or column D, other federal state programs, we show almost $1 million deficit after applying the indirect. This is mostly due to not being able to charge our COC grant programs an indirect rate. And then looking at that first gray column, column F, enterprise funds, this is mostly our single family, multifamily servicing programs, where we show a surplus of $6.4 million after the indirect. So that's kind of what the schedule is trying to show here. If you look at the second gray column, column G, the internal service funds, the biggest takeaway from the schedule is our inability to recover all our overhead costs using that 29% rate. So under internal service funds down on line FF, the total overhead costs are $7.4 million. and you see that 4.2 million is not recoverable. There's a few reasons for this. When we negotiated the indirect cost rate the first year with HUD, we used our fiscal 22 financials. We had a lot of large COVID programs, somewhat inflating the numerator when calculating the rate. When we renegotiated our rate using our fiscal 23 financials, the rate was actually closer to 37%, and it's remained around that amount. While our goal is to net zero technically in all our programs, we also don't want to suffocate some of the grant programs. So we have asked HUD each time they come back to us if we could keep the rate at 29%, because we're still generating some profits and we feel like that's a fair trade-off. So we continue to review our overhead costs, but we're comfortable using that 29% rate. So for fiscal 26, we're still reflecting that $4.8 million surplus after that.
Tracy, what would be the industry average?
You got me. John and I have this conversation all the time. We've reached out to other HFAs, and it seems to be all over the board. Most of them, I think, are closer to 40%, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen one that 29% at the time felt right, but it seems our normal years, our non-COVID years, we're closer to that 35 to 40%.
Right, you have to get the indirect cost rate approved.
Yeah, so we have to submit it every year by December 31st based on our fiscal year end of June 30. I have not heard back from our submission from this past December. I know it was assigned to the Department of Interior to review. I don't know why. The prior year, it was Department of Health and Services that did the work for HUD. But I suspect I might not hear back, which seems to be the case with a lot of agencies. It's been very difficult to get through the process of getting the indirect cost rate approved because the responsiveness isn't necessarily great from at least HUD, let alone some of the other agencies. So we'll continue to submit, and we'll continue to use what we're approved at, and we'll do it again later this year.
Thank you.
I just want to highlight a few points from the conclusion of the memo that is with the budget packet. So I'm just going to read a couple bullet points from there. As the corporation moves into fiscal 26 and looks at 27 and beyond, it's clear the path is unpredictable. Recently, the White House released the administration's proposed funding levels for federal programs, and the cuts are quite dramatic. While the likelihood of all those proposed changes being included in the next federal budget is unknown, funding cuts or changes to the administration of federal programs will likely occur and have an impact on the corporation. Mortgage production and servicing continue to be a strong source of revenue for the corporation. However, we do have loans that were made in a higher interest rate environment that could result in prepayments and increased refinancing activity if the Federal Reserve takes action to reduce rates, which would negatively impact a strong and reliable source of revenue for us. Likewise, if there's any additional changes to the corporation's PBCA contract with HUD, resulting in reduction in fees or increased costs, administering the contract will also strain our resources. The current administration's proposal would block grant funding for public housing and rental assistance to the state at a significant reduction in funding. This would have a pretty big impact on the administrative fees earned by the PBCA program, which helps support the overall profitability of the corporation. Furthermore, the recent Moody's investor service downgrade of the U.S. debt from AAA to AA will likely have a ripple effect on bonds that have a AAA rating and are dependent on the credit of the U.S. government. This will include HFA bonds with a AAA that is dependent primarily on mortgage-backed securities, including the corporation. We'll continue to monitor this and its impact, and if any, on the pricing and demand in the market for MBSs. Overall, I'm proud of the executive team and leadership putting together a considerable, manageable budget that will keep the corporation on good financial condition for the next year. I'd like to point out that Kendrick Bonderschmidt is in this meeting. Him and his team did a considerable job working with leadership to put this budget together. And I just want to recognize him for his hard work and long hours getting us a sound budget. I'm happy to take any questions.
Hey, Barry, it's Bill again.
No,
And,
no, you're perfect, Bill. Appreciate that.
All righty.
You can have as many questions as you want. There's no limit.
Okay, I promise they'll diminish. But first of all, Tracy, thank you and the team for my first time through the budget process, and it was very well put together and from a understandability standpoint. And you touched on this a minute ago about the uncertainty about a lot of the programs that we administer on behalf of the federal government. I'd be curious if you've got any observation or anyone on the team there. One of the other things that's been proposed is to privatize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Would that have any impact on KHC? And if so, how would it?
I don't think it would have any direct impact on us. We do offer Fannie and Freddie products. But you know, if whether they're privatized or not, I think we would just continue to do so. And you know, I don't necessarily think it would be a negative thing for them to privatize those. So no, I have not gotten the sense from anybody that would cause an issue for us.
Okay, thank.
Bill, I don't think that it will either. However, the only thing I would caution everybody as it privatizes is they might change some of the offerings that they have, maybe some of the cost structure, pricing, things like that we just need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, they're still going to have the conduit to offer their products.
Right. Thank you.
Barry, do we need a motion on the finance report in the new budget?
We need actually two motions, so I'll let you do two. We're on resolution 25 and 26.
Well, I'll make a motion to do 25 and 26 since I've got to go here. I think I'll make this motion. Because I don't know if you'll have a quorum.
Okay, so do we have a second on both of those? Since I'll spread them out here in a second. But we've got a motion on the 25, resolution 25.
Second.
A second there. So all those in favor on 25, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same like sign. So that passes. And 26, we also have a motion. Do we have a second on the consideration of the recommendation there?
Matt Wingate, I'll second.
Okay, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign, and motion passes on both. So we will recommend both to the board.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Great job, Tracy. And for that, we're going to keep giving you the floor.
Well, I'm just going to go back to Bill, your question on our income statement in the interfund transfers. Matt Razor is also on the call here. He is our controller. He was recently promoted to the controller position, and he has sent me a message that we're only showing our business type activities on that schedule. Our larger financial statements will also include governmental activities, and that nets out to zero. So it's just because we're only showing business type on the schedule.
Thank you.
And thank you, Matt. Okay, I just had one informational item here, mostly because, you know, a couple of you all are new to the Finance Committee, and I just wanted to give a brief overview of what we do. We meet 3 times a year, why and what we do at each of those meetings. So the February meeting is just a general presentation of some financial reports. So we provide an update of our December 31st financials. And then I've got a couple reports where I go over our trading results, some loan servicing portfolio metrics and updates, and then just a general update on our financing plan. So right now we do sell loans to the secondary market as well as issue mortgage revenue bonds, but that does change based on market conditions. So That's generally what happens at the February meeting. You've just sat through the May meeting. So this is where Kevin will bring his internal audit plan for approval. We will provide a third quarter financial update, and then we request an adoption of our proposed budget for the next fiscal year. And then in September, we once again will go over some financial reports of mortgage production and servicing activity, and our auditor, Crow, will present our annual financial statements for year end. We need those approved and submitted to Ginnie Mae by September 30th. It's a very strict deadline. So we have to have a finance committee in September, even though there's not a full board meeting, to get that audit approved. So we can adhere to Ginnie Mae's compliance requirements. But I thought this might be helpful for some of the new folks. Any questions?
Do we need to adopt meeting dates, or is those set by our?
No, I think generally staff here will just reach out to you all and get a date on the calendar closer to when we need to meet.
Okay.
That's all I have this morning, Mr. Chairman.
So any other questions for Tracy before we let her get off the stand? Or the hot box, or whatever we want to call this. Did a great job again, Tracy.
Thank you.
I'm going to print up T-shirts, Jim Who. With that, well, let's move on to any items the board or the staff may need to discuss at this time. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Matt Wingate, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Chad Mills, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. I won't entertain that, by the way. Great. Look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday. So we have